Hey, welcome to the Cyber Savvy Woman, where women business owners reclaim their power in the digital world. We shatter the myth that cybersecurity is too complex to master and transform protection strategies into clear, actionable guidance. This is your digital empowerment sanctuary, where cyber fear becomes cyber confidence. Whether you're protecting client trust as a therapist or safeguarding financial data as an advisor, you'll hear from women founders who've conquered digital challenges and security experts who speak your language. Every woman leading a business deserves to feel unshakable in her digital decisions, no matter her technical background. Are you ready to stop letting cybersecurity intimidate you and start letting it elevate you? Here's your host, Rachele Schainker.
Welcome back to the Cyber Savvy Woman, where we talk about practical ways women can protect themselves, their businesses, and their future in our increasingly digital world. I'm your host, Rachele Schainker, a Silicon Valley technologist and owner of the award-winning managed service provider, CMIT Solutions of San Mateo. Today, we're talking with Brett Schklar, a serial entrepreneur, best-selling author, and AI adoption strategist who works closely with CEOs and business owners to help them use AI without the hype and without putting their businesses at risk. Brett has built and scaled and sold a successful marketing agency, leads elite fractional CMO through Grow Powered, and now spends his time helping leaders adopt AI in practical, secure, and people-first ways. He's spoken with nearly 1,500 CEOs about what's actually working with AI and what's not. Today, we'll dive into how business owners can adopt AI reasonably, avoid shadow AI, and put smart guardrails in place that leads their teams confidently in an AI-driven world without sacrificing security or trust. Brett, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here. And Rachele,
Brett, I would love for you, we had a pre-call talk and you describe yourself as a serial entrepreneur, which usually means learning things the hard way. What lessons from your earlier businesses most shaped how you think about AI today?
Well, appreciate being here. I do describe myself as a serial entrepreneur. And what that really means is I've had a lot of failures. And I failed so many times that somehow I accidentally had a couple of successes.
I love it.
And so, with that, I learn a lot. And when I say that I learn things the hard way, it means that I have tried and failed. And usually in the world that I live in, being in technology, being in marketing, trying to help push the envelope with companies and leaders and things like that, sometimes I have a tendency to push people a little too fast, a little too far. And so for me, the lessons are I can't push people as quickly as I want to change things.
Yeah.
Change has to happen more slowly. It has to happen more intentionally, and it has to happen in support of people and not with people feeling the resistance or feeling the struggles of those things. So that's what I've learned.
Yeah. I mean, I think change management is such an interesting process science, and really getting that buy-in and understanding, the leaders, and we'll talk about this more about what the leaders need and how to get what their little triggers are to get them to see how the change can happen. It's real interesting. And it's so relevant right now with AI because, as you mentioned in your book, and we'll talk about your book too, you really give us a nice guideline of like how to prep an organization to implement AI. But let's back up for a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. When you sold your marketing agency, what did stepping away from that business teach you about scale and people and systems? What did you take away from that experience?
So think of all the way back in 2019, before, and what I like to talk about is this is before the ChatGPT moment.
Yeah.
This is before, the world really got their hands on directly. And when we talked about AI was this thing that was like out there that scientists and deep technologists and large technology companies worked on. So with my little marketing agency, which we grew to about 35 people, and we had over 230 clients, and our measurement of success in working with B2B technology companies was their ability to get acquired, by bigger companies. And we had 53 of those happen. And it was a lot of people power. It was a lot of work to make sure that we understand the vision and the goals of our clients and making sure that we were really good partners to our clients. And I think because I taught that fundamental principle of us operating on the best interest of our clients in our decisions and our actions, it really helped us build and scale, that business and do it in the support of our clients and making sure we were doing a lot of training and that our employees were, we were not getting paid for a lot of work
Yeah.
where we were spending time with companies to learn about their business and their challenges. And that I think really worked out well, which allowed us to scale up with our clients, a smaller number of clients that we had long-term relationships with. And that got embedded into our systems where we were teaching other people in the company about the clients that we were working
Yeah.
with. And that systematic approach to that knowledge that we want to know the client's business as well as, if not better than their clients themselves, really, I think, it taught us a lot. Stepping away from that, you hear a lot of entrepreneurs who talk about selling their business. In fact, my wife just sold her law practice about 6 months ago. And, you first are excited, you're like victory lap, everything is great. And then you have this huge gaping hole. And so, I learned that I love building those systems. I love building the education. I love building the training. And that was really, I think, it's always been and always will be a formula for what I do and how I find my passion.
Yeah. And so when did you have your ChatGPT moment? What kind of clicked for you and made you go all in on AI?
Yeah. Yeah. So I sold, Market Creation Group, the marketing
Yeah.
firm back in 2019. Took a little bit of time off. I actually went to go work full time as a chief marketing officer for a healthcare technology company, but it was a challenging company and it's no longer around. And to be honest, I forgot how bad of an employee I actually am. And so, I decided to really double down on being a
Yeah.
fractional CMO.
Yeah.
And so I was getting to the point where I was getting busy and I was adding on more fractional CMOs to my company. And this is the company that you mentioned in the introduction, Grow Powered. And as I started to, need to build and scale and put in those systems, I really didn't want to have to go through all the same heartaches and pains that I did with my previous agency. Our revenue was not as consistent as our expenses. And that's always tough for business owners. There was a lot of people management and a lot of personality management, especially in marketing. We are all prima donnas and think that we're the greatest things to slice bread. And so I was really scratching my head saying, well, how can I continue to grow without, dealing with a lot of the pains that I ran into before? And that was around November of 2023 when we all got our hands on ChatGPT for the first
Yeah.
time. And I was like, holy cow, like this can not only, replace some systems and create automated systems and make things faster, but I have, the downside of being entrepreneurial is I'm scattered in my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
And my aha moment was, wow, I can take my scattered thoughts and get them into something more
Yeah.
organized so that other people can more easily understand the systems I'm looking to create without having to read my mind. And that being a measure of success or failure of people, being able to have premonitions
Yeah.
and read my mind about what I knew what I was doing. So that was my moment. And when that clicked for me, growth started to scale up without having a lot of the heartaches that I had in my previous agency.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I definitely see that with our clients, like kind of once that light bulb goes on about AI and they start to see it everywhere, and they're like, how can we implement this? How can we harness this? Sometimes it does happen faster than, leadership expects. Adaption or using it or how a organization will use it. When you're working with those CEOs across different industries, what is the biggest misconception you hear about AI from, I focus on small, mid-sized businesses, so we can kind of talk in that world. But, what kind of misconception what's your first thing you have to kind of clear up?
Yeah. And I also work in the small and mid-sized business world as well, which I find to be very beneficial. I also find it to be opportunistic in the world of AI because I think that the smaller companies, and I know we're going off topic here a little bit, but the smaller companies actually have the advantage.
Yeah.
I have been doing on the fractional CMO side, we're working with some very big companies and their ability to adapt and their
Yes.
ability to implement new things is so cumbersome that I believe that the small and medium-sized businesses really have the opportunity here over the next
Yeah.
2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
so, the things that I'm seeing, the misconceptions that I see,
Hmm.
and for the last 18 months, I've really been meeting with a lot of CEOs. And the biggest misconception is they don't think people are actually using AI in their business.
Yeah.
And I thought that, when I started hearing that 18 months ago, let's say, early 2024, I thought, okay, this is just a matter of time before the CEOs have the aha moment.
Yeah.
But we're in January
Yeah.
2026, and I'm still talking to CEOs who have such a disconnect from what people are doing versus what they think that they're doing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it has a lot to do with the fear of being caught cheating by using AI. And that's a problem in companies I run into.
Yeah, yeah, same. I mean, I see it in the managed service world with my peers that some owners are like, "Oh no, we don't talk about it." And, you have to talk about it because it's there, and, I am in IT, and you mentioned in your book about sometimes AI initiatives fail when they're thrown over to IT. But share with me a little bit more of your thought. I mean, I kind of know where you're going on that, but I think there could be
Yeah.
some positive too.
Yeah. And let me just preface this. My best friend is a big
Yeah.
time IT
Yeah.
person. I am a
Yeah.
technologist, maybe not
Yeah.
by discipline, but by nerdy DNA, right?
Sure.
I got Star
Yeah.
Trek going on here, right? So,
Yeah.
and I respect and I admire IT people. Here's what I see though.
Yeah.
When CEOs know that I'm coming to their group to talk to them, the first thing they ask is, can I bring my IT department
Oh,
or
yeah.
bring my IT lead? And I said,
Yeah.
sure, only if you want these initiatives to fail. And
Right.
here's the reason why. It is a complete different goal of IT than AI right now. And so let me explain that. A good IT person is looking for the risks. They're looking for the things that can cause trouble. They're looking for the things that can cause downtime. They're looking for the things that can cause fraudulent activities. And, there's no sugarcoating this. AI is risky and it
Yeah.
will be risky.
Right.
And so it is against the DNA of the job of IT to keep a protective eye on things, to introduce AI. Even the more, and there's a lot of, IT leaders and CIOs that may operate more like CTOs. But IT people see all the bad things that happen
Yeah.
and they protect us, and they probably don't tell us 75% of the bad things that happen. And
Yeah.
so when people are coming in with these bright, shiny, AI tools like, hey, look at this. This can, turn my face into a better face. And I look better and I smell better on camera and all this different stuff. Good IT
Sure.
people, they kind of cringe for
Yep.
good
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it has to be a leadership decision involving IT,
Yeah.
not an IT, led initiative.
Fair. That's totally fair. I agree with you on that. And that did strike a chord with me that I do. When I look at anything inside of an organization, I'm always like, what are the risks? How is this going to go bad? What is it? But I guess that is just kind of in our DNA. But
Yep.
I like how, and we'll talk about this further about how you can join those two. You did a great job in your book about explaining the different functions in a company, kind of what their role is, so everyone can participate. But you kind of have, you divide it up, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
So if a business owner is listening to this and they kind of feel behind, what is the lowest stress way they can get started with AI? What would you suggest for them
Yeah.
to look at?
And I think this is the most important question. And I really appreciate you asking this, Rachel. So there's two thoughts about this. Number one is, it blows my mind that when I go and talk to CEOs, they're using AI in their personal life. They're using it for health reasons. They're using it to organize their thoughts or their project plan. They're using it to help build their workout plan. They're using it to help them with their food, and grocery list. They're using it to have a conversation with their wife or their kids, and they're using it in their personal life, but they're not using it at all at work.
Right.
And so, I see that as a challenge. I see that as, sort of a gap that I, try to help, bring those two things together. So I think there's an opportunity there. The second thing I would say, as far as lowest stress way to get people started with AI is to just start talking about it in the company.
Yeah.
When CEOs don't talk about it, people feel like it's cheating. People feel like they shouldn't tell anybody that they found some efficiency to make their jobs a little bit easier. And I think that's the wrong thing to do, because we are, this is the biggest transformation a business will see in our lifetime. We've seen in our lifetime so far. And staying quiet about it or having it be, done in the shadows, which is a little
Yes.
different than shadow AI. We'll talk
Yeah.
about that, but that secrecy and that, shame
Yeah.
that people feel about using AI is a problem. So starting to talk about it, as you might have seen in my book, one of the first things I'd say is you got to set the tone.
Yeah.
And there's three ways you can go with that. One is you can say, look, we're going to look at AI. We're not going to deploy it, but we're going to talk about it.
Right.
Second
Yeah.
way is we're going to let people talk about what they want to do, but maybe build a very cautious plan. And then the third level is, we're going all in on AI. We're going to build our steering committee. We're going to build a center of excellence. We're not going to turn down, AI opportunities, but we're going to do it organized.
Yeah.
And we are changing our mindset that AI is a good business tool, not something to be done, in the dark and the quiet and in your private time.
Yeah,
So
sorry to interrupt, but I
no, go ahead.
really appreciate that, because one of my goals with my clients is to kind of create a safe place for them to come and talk about their cybersecurity issues. We do training on a monthly basis. We encourage them to forward any emails. It's like we want an organization we want the team members to not feel that shame. Like they don't know what to
Right.
do if they get a weird email and then they click on something and then they don't want to tell anyone. So that's something we really talk about and enforce and support. And I love I'm going to include AI in that, in that
Yeah.
conversation. Like it's just, and as you mentioned, I love this, bring your own AI, BYO AI. That is just so great. Like we have, AI use case policies that we share, but I think I'm going to go back and look at it because I don't know if we have, there should be something in there about when people bring their own AI and how to deal with it, what should go in there, and look at that. So really very interesting. And thank you for, adding that, because AI is so encompassing. I am very cognizant about how I want to approach an organization with it, right? I don't never want to tell them like, you need to do this or you need to do that, but I want to be there and support them and make sure they're secure and safe. So this just really spoke to me. Yeah. So did you coin that BYOAI?
I did. It was, I'm not going to lie. It was a conversation over a
Yeah.
frosty beer beverage with my IT friend.
I'm sure.
And we were talking
Yeah.
we all, for the last 20 years, we've talked about BYOD, right?
Yeah.
Bring your own
Yeah.
device and what
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
risks are and how to sort of build a policy. And
Yeah.
we were talking about everybody's bringing their own AI tools to the
Yes.
table. And so, what if we just said, take something that's very parallel
Yeah.
and bring it in. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, it's great. It's great. So when employees, what about when employees do, copy paste information into an AI tool, what kind of data creates the biggest risk, even if it doesn't feel sensitive? Is there something that you see, an employee or, a team member can be like, oh, I'm just going to, push this in there, like what,
Yeah.
do you talk about that with organizations? I mean, do you go that deep or that low
Big time.
level?
Big
Yeah.
time. Yes. And that's one of the places we start when we engage with clients is let's start, so number one is let's set the tone. Number two is let's put in some protective things, which is like the acceptable use policy. Then let's also build the communication and the collaboration around AI being a good thing, not a bad thing. But when it comes to, employees using AI and bringing their own, AI tools and copying and pasting, anything, especially in the sales and marketing arena, it could be a press release being crafted and somebody was using a free version of ChatGPT, or a salesperson is working on a sales proposal and they're using it. Well, that obviously is very risky. And so the mantra that I give to CEOs that I think they really get is, and this is with social media as well. There was a documentary about social media, and it talks about the fact that if a product is free, you're the product. And so, with the free tools, first of all, nobody's going to read the end user license agreement of these things that you just click on.
Yeah.
But the second thing is, when you're using a free tool, you just have to assume that your stuff becomes their stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know who they is exactly, but we just have to go with that assumption. So if it is a salesperson working on a proposal, especially RFPs, which that's one of the best use cases I've got, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But if somebody's using the free tools, your stuff becomes their stuff, and therefore it causes a risk. So educating people on that simple fact alone, like letting employees know that, I think can really change the game as far as being more protective.
You shared an example with me about, one company, they found they had hundreds of AI tools in use, and when the leaders discovered that, what would be a first step, so they've opened it up. They said, hey, bring your AI tools here, but then what's the next step? What do you do, in those first 30?
Yeah, I think in this example, there was like maybe 120 employees, and then we found over 300 different AI applications used.
Yeah.
And the reason why, and the CEO, like, he's still like, I just can't believe this. It was tough because, sometimes I feel like I'm a therapist to the CEOs more than anything else. And the CEO, he was like, what else don't I know about my own company?
Yeah.
And so it brought a lot of doubt in him. And it's like, no, we're all trying to use this. So, the step one was let people know that AI is good and that you're proud of the company for taking initiatives. Number two is remind people that the free tools are a very big risk. So in order for us to mitigate that risk, and there's not going to be any judgment, there's not going to be any firing, there's not going to be any corrective action whatsoever. But now that we know, now that we know a lot of people are using this, let's get organized.
Yeah.
And so one of the fun things we did was we did show and tell.
Yeah.
Where people would show how they're using AI to help their business. And they would get like a $25 gift card, an Amazon gift card, or a Starbucks gift card for doing this. And, the whole idea is again, not judging, not slapping somebody's hand, but saying, oh, wow, this is a great use of AI. You use the free version. Let's see about, what we can do different there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a really important thing. But the third thing is just the education of, when you're using these tools and they're not a part of, our sanctioned AI, systems. If it's free, you're probably feeding their information. And if it's not free and it's a separate LLM, then we're not training our systems well enough to really understand our business. And that's not going to help us in the long term.
Yeah, makes sense. And then I would imagine kind of the next step is to start talking about kind of like the return, once they're organized and they have their tools in place, figuring out, evaluating what the return on AI is. Where are you seeing ROI show up first for AI?
So hands down, it's the marketing departments. For very logical reasons, they're doing a lot of content work. And AI can really help scale up a marketing program. Company with 3 employees can now do the work of 20, or 3 marketing employees, or even, 1 or 2 marketing employees can now do the equivalent of, 3 times as many marketing people. So again, that really levels the playing field. And we're seeing 3x to 3.5x return on AI in marketing.
Wow.
In the last 6 months, we have seen sales really ramp up their return on AI. And I've got some latest stats, and I'll send them to you so we can, put a link to it in the show. Salespeople are doing a phenomenal job of adopting AI. I would say more in the last 6 months than anything else. Part of that is that the CRMs, the HubSpots and the Salesforce and the Zohos are getting better about utilizing AI. Mm-hmm. But also in the work that I'm doing, I'm teaching, the companies that are going after like, RFPs, requests for proposals, or more complex sales process. When I teach them how to use AI and how to use the systems, to write the response to an RFP, a request for proposal. And it goes from 2 weeks of, of basically the equivalent of dental work as far as
Yes.
pain to
Yes.
do,
Pick and shovel.
to
Yeah.
now it takes less than an hour. And then
Yeah.
the time spent is really on the iterating and having other people review it.
Yes.
That's the game changer. And
Yes.
that's where I'm seeing the fastest ROI as far as
Yeah.
true business results is rewiring the sales departments and, helping the marketing departments get aligned with the sales departments, through using AI.
Yeah. For me personally, from an operation point of view, voicemails were a big issue. And I have like multiple phone lines, help desk, public facing, there was like 5 different phone lines that we were managing. And I have a little AI assistant on there that just consolidates everything, transfers to the right one, does a great, I think I've saved at least 10 hours a week of like follow up and making sure everyone is being touched. It's really helped. And I was not looking for that, right? That was not like at the top
Yeah,
of my line. I mean, I knew there had to be, my phone issue was an issue and I had to figure that out. But it was a AI assistant that totally cleaned that up for me. So I was like, this is great. What's the
very
next
nice.
one we can do,
Very
If a
nice.
business owner does only have bandwidth for one AI use case, where should they focus? Or how would they figure out what's most important for them?
Yeah. And this is certainly a tough question as far as, where's the
Yeah.
one place where you can really solve problems for your business?
Yeah.
And, I hate to do this because all professional services people do this. And the answer
Yeah.
is it depends. But
Oh, no, it does depend. I agree with you.
yeah, I would say, let me tell you what I wouldn't do. If I only had one bullet in the barrel,
Yeah.
I would not mess with customer service or, existing customer stuff, because that's where experimentation without a lot of study and research can hurt a company. And again, I'll give you one answer for some and one answer for others.
Sure.
If companies are starting to already adopt AI and they're doing it in their sales program and their marketing program, then my guidance would be for a CEO that you just want to make sure that you are training the one LLM that you choose to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is so important, because the more you train your own LLM, and I'll talk about that in a minute as far as Copilot versus Gemini versus ChatGPT and all those things, because that creates a lot of chaos. But, for people who are already starting to use AI, centralize your use. And if you're on Microsoft, just go with Copilot. It's not the brightest, shiniest object. It is behind when, you see all the AI nerds on YouTube talking about the comparisons of all these LLMs. But, but if you're on Microsoft, then just use Copilot. It's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of heartache, and it's going to be easier for finding the adoption opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're on Google, stick to Gemini. And actually Gemini is really far ahead right now, and all of the YouTube faces and the faceless, videos and all this other stuff going on is talking
Yeah.
about Gemini's superiority. But if you're on Google Workspace, and most people are on either Microsoft 365 or on Google Workspace, right? And stick to the LLM that works with those systems, because when you are training them, you are making it better, faster, and stronger to make sure that everything is aligned in your company when you're using AI.
Yeah.
Now, the other side of it is, let's say that there's a CEO that hasn't really done any AI initiatives and they're just trying to, find that one place to really get juicy. I would say it is in the go-to-market, which is primarily, on the sales side with supportive marketing, because there's some real productivity gains. There's some real multipliers of impact that can be had in whatever your sales channel is, whether it's, high dollar, professional selling, or it's transactional. But that sales and marketing, that go-to-market, if you're not already doing a lot with AI, that's where I would put my focus.
Yeah. One thing I kind of walk them through too is like, look at the existing applications you're using. What AI tools are already in there? If you're a fractional CFO, like let's go look at QuickBooks, because AI is popping up everywhere. So until we bring in something else, let's look at what you have and see how we can leverage that and then go out.
Yep.
So let's talk, because I do like the AI policy point of view, what are some must-have bullet points for a small business, just in plain English? What are the key factors to support the business, protect the business?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I think that there needs to be, monthly training about AI. Again, not shaming, not saying don't do this, don't do that, but having people do some sharing of stories. And I think that not necessarily an employee or a contractor policy, but as a policy within the company is incredibly
Yeah, culture.
important. The second thing I would say is that in the policy, you want to say, we are open to a lot of tools. We do want to make sure that it's not going to put the company or the customer data at risk. So let's review tools and, I would say put something in place that does a quick review of tools so that people can really benefit. And the third thing for companies that are probably doing a lot more, I would go back to, telling people if you're on Microsoft 365, use Copilot because, the IT organization or the MSP or even the MSSP already has access to that. And there's some great governance and hierarchy set up. And so that makes it easier within Copilot or the same thing within Google Gemini.
Yeah. We have a product called Hatz AI, HATZ, that we partner with. And you set it up, it's like a tenant. So you set it up for an organization, but it has, I think, over 300 different LLMs, because that's something I've also experienced where then you bring everyone together, but you have one person here wants this, one person there wants that. So this kind of brings it all together, and it's been successful. And they also include what you're mentioning of that training. Before they can get access to the 300 LLMs, they have to go through some training, and it's been helpful. Like they kind of, some people are resistant to that training, but I'm like, it's 20 minutes, just turn it on, just get through it. And it helps, so it level sets. So everyone's at the same spot. When you've said Microsoft Copilot and Google Gemini could be safer because you're already in there, and they're not perfect. They're not the best, or they could be the best, but there could be something else, and governance is easier. You kind of mentioned that as far as like the MSP can help that. What do you think about having multiple LLMs? What if you wanted Copilot and Claude or something? Do you see that and ChatGPT, enterprise level?
Yep.
Are you seeing that
Yep.
where they're setting up multiple LLMs for an organization? And not just
I
buying into
do.
one? Yeah.
I do see that. And here's my thing is I think that 2026 is the year that the companies who are focused on training their LLMs and making sure that the LLM has all of the company mindset and mind share and intelligence and knowledge are the ones who are going to really be able to double down on it in 2027. And because of that, I think that the fragmented LLMs could be a risk unless you have integrated them all, right? So
Yeah.
I do admire ChatGPT. It integrates, with a lot of systems, including Microsoft 365, including Google. Claude does the same thing, are starting to do a lot better job of that. But I don't know how integrated the actual LLMs are themselves. That's a challenge and opportunity. And, I think marketing is definitely the farthest ahead. So if you've got a marketing person, I think there could be some exceptions there. But I do strongly suggest that you focus on training one primary LLM, and any other tools, if they're not plugging into or connecting to that primary LLM, it could be fragmenting the knowledge that you could use to your advantage in the coming years.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's so important to stick with Copilot. Also, I love how integrated Copilot is with the, Microsoft tools, with the, with Outlook and with the web browser version of Outlook and on an iPad and on a phone, and it's everywhere. And that makes it super easy. And same thing with Google, that wherever you get into your Gmail or your Google Workspace, it's right there as well. And so I think as you're trying to make it easier for people, you want to give them unlimited access to something. And I would, I would ask the question, is it something that Copilot can't do? Is it something that Gemini can't do? And if not, that's okay. Let's use something else. But can we take that institutional knowledge and make sure it feeds our primary LLM, which might be something else?
Yeah.
But some companies are choosing ChatGPT as their primary LLM, and some are using Claude as a primary LLM. My guidance is just, focus on the training, and that's what's going to
Yeah.
set you up for the long term.
Yeah. Tell us about your book. I read it last night. I found it, I'm definitely going to, incorporate some of those checklists. But who uses it? Is it for them to be using it on their own, or, is it a guy? Yeah. Tell us about your book.
Yeah, so the book is AI Without the BS, the CEO's playbook for actually getting AI right. And I'm going to be honest, I wrote it at a 6th grade reading level. Not because I think CEOs are dumb, but I think
Yeah.
CEOs are very busy. So
Yeah.
as you said, you read it last night. It's a
Yeah.
quick read, and it's
Yeah.
got a lot of checklists in it.
Yeah.
And so the goal is to not, I get frustrated by a lot of these technologies and a lot of these AI adoption, people on YouTube that dive into the weeds so quick. And for me, this is a people management transformation initiative. And as such, I wrote this so that it is a quick roadmap for people to use that may have been experimenting with AI in their company, but need a real roadmap, a real framework,
Yeah.
a real playbook,
Yeah.
to put it all together. So it's got a lot of checklists.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of big fancy words. I do have a glossary
Yeah.
in the back, but that's just
Yeah.
because there's a lot of questions that I
Sure.
had. And, the goal is that it's made for a CEO that can read it in a night or 2 nights, and then maybe even share it with their leadership team
Yeah.
to realize that this is not a science project. This is a business transformation that could really set companies up for big, big success.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. And I love checklists. So for me, I was like, oh yes, that's, it was perfect. I was like, oh, okay, this works really nicely. I like that. Well, this is great. So at the end of our podcast, we do this little cybersecurity rapid fire. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions and then we'll wrap it up. So are you a PC or a Mac person?
So I'm ambidextrous. I do Mac I'm the opposite. I do Mac for all my work and productivity, but I do a little bit of gaming and I do a lot of remote control airplanes, and everything requires PC on that. So I have both.
Nice. I like that. And then a phone or tablet? What do you prefer?
I am definitely more of a tablet person. Maybe I'm getting older. My eyesight isn't good, but I just need more real estate.
Yeah. And then what about Google or Microsoft?
Yes. One of my companies is Google. One of my companies is Microsoft. It allows me to be better at understanding the advantages and opportunities of AI. I use both equally, no doubt about it.
Oh, I like that. And then what AI tool do you use personally every day?
I personally use ChatGPT. It is my guide. It is my business consultant. The voice one, I call him Q, either from James Bond or from Star Trek, depending on how much I want it to help or hurt me.
Yeah, nice. And then what is one business task that you never want to do again without AI?
Project management.
Okay. And then what is the most overlooked risk for AI for small businesses?
The use of the free tools and where that data is going.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Brett, thank you so much for joining me today. I loved hearing your perspective on AI adoption for the CEO and the operator's lens, especially your focus on cutting through the hype, leading with culture, and helping businesses use AI in a way that actually drives productivity without sacrificing trust or security. Your reminder that successful AI adoption isn't about chasing the flashiest tools, but about people, leadership, and clear guardrails is such an important takeaway for business owners right now. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Cyber Savvy Woman, where we explore practical ways women can protect themselves, their businesses, and their futures in this increasing digital world. To connect with Brett Schklar and to learn more about his work with AI First Leadership, Grow Powered, and his book, AI Without the BS, be sure to check out the show notes for links and resources mentioned in today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to follow, rate, and share the show. And join us next time for more real conversations about technology, leadership, and living with a more cyber-savvy life. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
The Cyber Savvy Woman podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Hey, thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.